Hi guys, welcome to our latest game. Charlie and I are playing today. Say hi, Charlie.
Hi.
Right, we're playing Macdonald's Attack at Bautzen, or a slightly stripped down version of that because we don't quite have enough Italians or indeed quite enough Russians. So a slight tweak to the orders of battle, but pretty close. We're actually using the introductory scenario from the GDA book, and thank you to one of our subscribers who suggested why don't we play this game because we probably had the right troops. And I'd forgotten all about this scenario. So that's the one we're going to be playing. The French objectives are to capture the village of Rischen, which is here in the centre of the table. This is garrisoned by two veteran Russian battalions. These are meant to be Jaegers, but we're actually using grenadiers for those this game, and I'm going to make them both veterans as we're slightly short on Russian troops. Otherwise, all the other Russian troops in the game today will be of line quality. We've got one brigade here on the right, two battalions of Jaegers just behind this second village here. This is the village of Falkenberg, with possible ambitions to try and seize that village if they get initiative this turn. They're supported by a line infantry battalion. This is their large regular artillery battery, and we have two more battalions from this brigade. So the brigade's quite spread out. Here's the brigade commander just behind the artillery, and it is deployed so all of these units are in command range. So this is the Russian right flank, three battalions, two more battalions, and a medium but large medium artillery battery. And we have two battalions of veterans in a separate brigade holding the village. We have an independent command of a brigade or a regiment of hussars. We're slightly short of Russian cavalry until I acquire some more. And then we have the second Russian brigade here with another medium artillery battery, three more battalions of regulars, and on the flank two battalions of Jaegers. They're deployed on the other side of this slightly rough terrain from the French. Let's have a look at Charlie's French forces. So he has an allied brigade first. This has two battalions of Italian regulars with an Italian brigadier there on the hill in his green uniform. We are using two other battalions. One's a small line battalion and one's a regular line battalion. We're actually using Swiss as standards for that. Then Charlie will need to put a brigade commander out. So if you can get a commander out of the cabinet. We then have a brigade of three regiments of dragoons. So the French certainly have cavalry superiority in this game. So we'll see how that does. And then we've got the main French assault force. So we've got a medium artillery battery and five battalions of line troops, again of regular quality. We've actually got a large battery, a heavy battery here. We're using those as regulars because they were the ones in the box packed with this brigade. So apologies for being a bit lazy there, but we weren't delving into another box to get a regular battery out. So they'll only count as 6-pounders. And they've got five battalions of light troops. So we're short a couple of Italian battalions for the French order of battle, and we're short a couple of Russian Jaeger battalions from their order of battle, but they'll broadly compensate for one another. So we're going for our large table. So for those who've been intrigued, this is a 10 by 4 table. We will, as is traditional for the defenders, allow them a couple of turns of pre-game artillery fire as the French forces moved up to these assault positions, because we should be playing this on a 6-foot wide table, but we prefer having the width. It just gives us a bit more manoeuvring rather than the depth, which cramps everything together. So we'll come back once we've done that pre-game fire with the first proper turn of the game. Alright, so we're going to play this with 5 ADCs each. Let's see how we do for ADC activations. Well, I get 4. How many have you got, Charlie?
3.
Okay, we'll allocate those ADCs and then roll off for initiative. Okay, so unfortunately for the French, the Italian brigade over here and the Dragoons both went hesitant. Charlie did get infantry assault off on this attacking line brigade in the centre, and his light brigade on his left flank are active. For the Russians, all their units are active, and we did get artillery assault off on our battery in the centre. So let's roll for initiative. B -2 for you, Charlie. So the Russians roll an 11, so they will have initiative this first turn. Okay, we'll start with the first turn. Okay, so starting on the left flank, the Prussians have started moving forward. There are 2 Jaeger battalions here looking to move up and occupy this hedge line. Their skirmishers have moved forward to the edge of this wheat field, and one of their other battalions that was in reserve down here has started moving forward to occupy that hedge line. These 2 battalions have gone into column to give themselves a bit more manoeuvrability. We will have artillery assault on this battery in the centre, probably going to go against the Dragoons, but might fire against the French over here. The French put infantry assault on, that's why so many units went hesitant, because Charlie used his ADCs to allocate them to infantry assault. So he is now assaulting his first objective with that 1st Infantry Battalion. They have charged, they automatically go into a building combat. We've done defensive fire, and the Russians did not cause any casualties. The Russian cavalry has reformed here, and these 2 battalions have pretty much remained stationary, although this battalion edged to the right a bit to make sure it was in support distance of the artillery battery on the hill. The French have occupied this village at the bottom of the hill with their Jaegers. The Russians have occupied this village at the bottom of the hill with their Jaegers. The French have moved up to threaten. All right, that's it for movement. We'll now start doing shooting, shall we, Charlie?
Yep.
Starting with the Russians, as they have initiative. All right, we'll be back in a second. Okay, so the Russian artillery is opening fire on the hill. It is just effective range of this French column. So we're firing at the 2nd Regiment of Light, 3rd Battalion. Not great. We roll a 5 at effective range. We do get 1 casualty from the combat dice. A 5 is 1 more casualty, so that's 2 casualties on the French there. All right, well now let's see what we've got in range of the Russian skirmisher screen. We'd like to fire at the artillery, but I think we're out of range, so we'll fire at this battalion here. Oh, right, because that one's in the combat. Okay, so we've got 4 bases, so that's 3 combat dice for the Russians. Let's see how we do as they open up against that battalion. We need 5s or 6s. We don't cause anything. All right, the garrison opened fire and didn't cause any casualties on the French as they charged home. So the next will be this artillery battery here. Could I have some blue dice because we got artillery assault, Charlie? We will fire at the Dragoons and try and get some bounce through. This will be at long range. Okay, we get nothing from our artillery dice and we roll a 4, so that'll be absolutely no effect. Terrible shot by my gunners, clearly not aimed in. It's a 3 for a fatigue casualty, so I think we're all right. Our skirmishers will be out of range, so that's it for Russian firing. Pretty ineffective. Let's see what the return fire from the French does. Remembering their 12-pounder battery in this game, we're playing as 6-pounders, so they will only be medium artillery. Okay, so we've done the French firing. The French skirmisher screen did remarkably well. They only had 2 dice, but they rolled a 5 and a 6 on both of them, so it caused 2 casualties on my Jaeger battalion that's just gone into that village. The French artillery opened fire and caused 1 more casualty on this battalion down here, and the other French artillery battery caused a casualty on my hussars. All right, now it's time for the final event of the first turn, close combat. So we both get 5 dice. Charlie loses 1 because he's attacking a built-up area, but he did commit his division's allocation of engineers to this. So we can see we've got the engineering unit there at the back of this battalion. Again, house rule here, we add a +1 if you've attached your engineering company to a battalion. Once they're attached, they have to stay with that battalion the rest of the game, so you can't go jumping them around. But that does mean Charlie will stay on 5 dice. The Russians do get 6 dice because they are veterans, so Russians have got a chance of holding the French up, not with dice rolling like that. That's only 2 to the Russians, so I think we get the option of a second round of combat. Okay, so this is going to be a tough ask for the Russians, but they are going to fight on. This is one of their objectives. This is their best troops. They are going to try and hold it. If they do get thrown back, they do have a supporting unit behind them so that they can fall back behind. So so it won't be a disaster, and they won't fly off the table forever. But they will only get 11 dice. Being veterans, the French get 13. So both me and Charlie have to re-roll one dice because we don't quite have enough. And re-roll one of my misses. Okay.
That was a miss, I accidentally moved it.
So how many have you got?
7.
I've got
4.
5.
I win.
You win by 2. The French, my God, at the end of turn 1, have captured the village. The Russians retreat. Charlie, with great glee, is occupying the village. He will be unformed because they've just gone into the building. The Russians have been thrown out. Both grenadier battalions have taken casualties. One of them's now taken 8 casualties, the other one 3. And they are retreating. So that'll be a falter test for that brigade next turn because you've got 2 retreating battalions. We'll now do a risk to general test. See if he's all right. He rolls as an 11. He's dead. So that's a falter test, but that's a double falter. So it can't make it any worse than it already is. So, but moral victory for Charlie there. He's killed my brigadier when they overwhelmed the village. But we do have an opportunity to counterattack with our other French, Russian even battalions next turn. We'll see how that goes. But a falter test at the start of turn 2. Okay, so Charlie had 3 ADCs and he allocated all of those to rerolls. All of the French army is active and now a dominant position holding the centre. The Russians only had 2 ADCs. They have managed to activate all their other brigades despite no rerolls, but we do now have to do the falter test. Let's see how we do.
4, you would.
Reroll a 4. They are veterans, so that might not be a disaster. We will just check that. Okay, so fortunately for veterans, a 4 is a rally test, so it's not quite the end of the game straight away. So that brigade is hesitant, so there'll be a leadership test or an initiative test at -1. So the Russians do quite well. They roll a 7, that goes down to a 6, and the French roll a 5. The Russians do have initiative this turn. Okay, so movement on turn 2. So the Italian regiment has moved forward with its skirmisher screen to contest this abatis of fallen logs with these Russian Jaegers. They've moved up, as has their sister battalion. This one's occupied this hedge line. This hedge line's also been occupied by Russian infantry, and the other 2 Russian infantry battalions are in echelon in support of the artillery battery. Meanwhile, the Swiss and the other French battalion have moved forward in sort of vague support of the Italians, but not particularly close support of the Italians. But the real threat over here is the 3 regiments of dragoons who are now moving forward and threaten the Russians on the left flank. In the centre, the Russians charged with one of their battalions of the brigade that's on the right here. And it's got no support, it doesn't have infantry support off, but it's got at least a slight chance of kicking the French out in the first round of combat. So we're going to go for it because the French are unformed in the village, which gives a bit of at least it makes it a 50-50 fight, which is going to be our best odds for some time.
4 dice each. So.
Yeah, 4 dice each, you're right, Charlie, as we get to that combat. We've moved our hussars out to try and drive off this French skirmisher screen, which are clearly trying to threaten my gun battery down here. My grenadiers have reformed, and otherwise my right flank has reformed. The French have moved up. We've got some close columns there, so there's some juicy artillery targets for me here. But we'll see how we go as we move on to that part of the turn. So that's movement finished, and now we are on to shooting. Okay, so I'm not sure whether I've got this ruling quite right, but the Russians feel like they need every help they can get. So we're firing at this French column here. This is at effective range, so we will get a bonus casualty dice for firing at a column at effective range. It's also close columns because those 2 columns are certainly within 3 inches of one another. So they make a more advantageous artillery target. So you get +2 dice for that. So I assume that's +2. But yeah. So I assume that's +2 +1. So it'll be +3 artillery dice. But he is in cover, so it'll be -1 off the red dice. Oh, double 1. So, oh my God, what? a roll. This clearly is not going to be the Russians' game. So that's a FT casualty, and they are out of ammunition, and all those bonus dices do nothing at all. You lucky, lucky player. Dad's dice rolling strikes again. I think that's the worst die roll I've seen for a long time. Okay, so we've completed the rest of the firing. The Russian guns here caused 2 casualties against the Dragoons. My skirmish screen can't fire because you can't fire at cavalry unless you're in cover. So that's unfortunate for that skirmish screen. The French skirmishers fired at the Russian artillery down here, didn't do any casualties. The French artillery up here caused a casualty on bounce through against this grenadier battalion, but no actual casualties on its main target. So
also, this gun did half of a casualty.
oh yeah, and we did 1 more casualty on the hussars. So they've now taken 3 casualties from long-range artillery fire from this battery behind the pond. All right, now next important thing, end of turn 2. Let's see if the Russians can recover the village. Well, they do pretty well. They roll 3 and you roll 3. All right, we're going to retire. We're not going to take on 3 French battalions in the village. All right, the French retain control of the village. All right, we've rolled for ADCs. Charlie, you put infantry assault on your French light brigade to have a chance of assaulting this village. That went off, didn't it, Charlie? And all your other brigades are active? Mm-hmm. Also for the Russians, we allocated 3 ADCs to this artillery battery. It seems a terrible shame, but we had 5 this turn, so we went for it, and they passed their test, so they have resupplied their ammunition supply, so they are no longer low on ammo, and all other Russian brigades went active. So this is a straight dice off. The Russians did go first last turn. They've got an 8. The Russians get it again. Turn 3, Russians to go first. Okay, so here on this flank, the Italians are looking to put pressure on this Russian line that are defending this little piece of woodland. Down in the centre, we've moved our skirmish screen from back from being potentially overrun by the Dragoons. So they're now occupying this little stony hillock, and they will be able to fire next turn. However, as Charlie's pointed out, his Dragoons here are nicely flanking this Russian battalion. So depending on what the Swiss do, he may have a flank charge to do on me. Down here, the Russians have formed square to potentially stave off attacks by those Dragoons. This one has stayed in column, given that it's got fire support from the artillery battery that's on its flank. Over here, the French are sort of consolidating their position in the village, and Charlie's played a canny manoeuvre because his front unit was unformed. He's pulled them right back, which you could do an unformed retire move and take a casualty, and he advanced in one of his undamaged battalions. So he's now got an uninjured battalion occupying the village, not the one that took 5 casualties. So Charlie's carefully rotating his French battalions to keep control of the village. Otherwise, more battalions have moved up here to pressure the Russian lines, but they probably take some heavy fire from the Russian guns, which, as I say, are no longer low on ammo. Charlie's battalions have just started to move across the hedge line there, and he has also assaulted the village on the right. That'll be an important combat. So we'll start with firing. Prussians to go first. Let's see how they do. As Charlie's just pointed out, I really have got to stop calling these Russians Prussians. Anyway, this Russian Jaeger battalion is going to open fire on the Italians that are crossing its front. Let's see how they do. We roll a 5. That'll be pretty hopeless. Unformed, we lose fire discipline if we were recruits, but we're not, so we're all right. Prussian skirmishers on the hill had no effect. The squares are too far away to fire, so our next thing to fire will be our Russian artillery. It's going to go against the Dragoon unit it's been targeting all along. This will be at effective range. 8. That's 2 casualties, isn't it? So 2 more casualties on that unit of Dragoons. They must have taken quite a few now, Charlie. What are they on now?
Extremely lot, only 5.
Only 5. All right. Next for the Russians, these units outside the village won't fire, but the skirmish screen, well, there'll be 3 shots against that French battalion in the village, in the field, but we will lose 1 dice because they are in cover. But that is 1 casualty on that battalion. And then our guns will fire. They will also fire at that same battalion, who will be in cover. So this will be at -1. But I will get a casualty dice, because this is a column at close range. And this will be a close range shot. This could be very painful, But if I roll 3 ones this time, it clearly won't be. Well, I tried to jinx luck. Not too bad. A 9. That goes down to an 8. So at close range, that's 3 casualties on that French battalion and a discipline test, Charlie.
-1.
2 dice. 8. So there are fine. There's quite a few casualties on them now. Only 4. All right. And Charlie, you fired into the village, so I can't fire with any of my battalions up here. So that's Russian firing done. Over to you.
So I'm going to fire my...
That's your artillery battery at the back there.
My skirmishers. I can only fire 4
Well, no,
of
because
them
you've charged them into
against-
combat.
No, the skirmishers against them. I can only fire 4 of them though. Cause
You can fire them against the supporting one that's just outside the village.
only
Yeah,
4 because there's no...
3, I think,
Okay.
but 3 dice. Oh, I don't believe that. You are just so lucky. I've run out of Russian casualty counters. You've caused so many.
Slip off the hedge.
I roll
Slip off the map.
5 ones. Charlie rolls 3 5s.
3.
3 casualties. No on the front one. Yeah.
And
Nothing else down here can
guns.
fire.
I'm
Yeah.
going to fire against the line.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. This will be at long range. Hey, you're now low on ammo and a fatigue casualty.
Now this gun.
Yeah.
Cavalry.
That'll be probably at effective range.
definitely.
We'll check that, but a 7 at effective range is 1 casualty. If it's at long range, it will be a half. We'll just check that in a second.
It'll be a casualty.
It'll be a casualty anyway.
Um,
Your skirmishers,
so
any of them within 12? How many? Not many of them are going to be within 12 of that screen.
he's not. He's not. He's not. He
So-
is, so just only 1 dice.
Okay. No.
Now.
And then you've got your
Skirmishers.
Italian skirmish screen here.
No.
You get 2 dice actually, I think, for 2 bases.
I've done a
No.
casualty. I've done a casualty up here. I don't know why there's no.
Casualty marker on there?
Yeah, I have definitely done one.
Okay, I'll mark that up now. Yeah, I think you did. It's him that you've taken somehow. My casualties have gone on to you. That was that one. All right, that's it for firing. Let's do the assault on the village. Can Charlie have the same luck as last time? All right, let's roll down here. I get 5 dice. You only get 4, Charlie, because you're assaulting a built-up area. Let's see how we do. I cause 3 casualties.
I caused 2, so that would be.
No, it's forced to cause a casualty.
So I caused 1.
You cause 1, you're thrown back, and I finally managed to hold a combat. Okay, in turn 4, the Italians have charged in against this line of Jaegers here on the left flank. In the centre, Charlie was otherwise hesitant with his dragoons, so there's no movement there, and that did leave them exposed to a counter-attack from the Hussars, so they have charged into the flank of the dragoons. Does mean the artillery here have no real target this turn, which is a shame. Down here, the Russians have continued to try and reorganise for another assault on the village. Meanwhile, Charlie's French troops continue to move up to threaten their final objective, the artillery battery on the hill. And then finally, on the far right flank, the French have assaulted again against the village, and we'll see how they do as they try and charge home there. All right, on with firing. Okay, so we're just doing firing. We did some defensive firing from the French garrison. Russian garrison. They did pretty well. They caused 2 casualties on the attacking French column that has charged into the village this turn. Then we moved on to French firing. So the French screen here fired and caused no less than 3 casualties on the supporting Russian battalion. They're now up to 6, not in a very healthy space. And then we were just moving on to firing of this skirmisher line, and we just rolled this. So 4 casualties for passing fire, and I presume skirmishers get passing fire, against the Hussars as they charged past, and with 3 6s, that's a discipline test, and the Hussars are now at -2. So a 6 goes down to a 4, so they go unformed. I'm not sure they're going to do too well with this charge. Okay, so the Russian guns are going to open fire against this attacking French column, again at close range at -1. Wow, double 6, that's pretty good. So that will be a destiny test, and that is 1 bonus casualty, and a double 6 at close range is 5, so that is 6 casualties against this battalion. That takes them up to 10, not quite dissolving point, and a discipline test at -2. Well, I'll roll that one again, that's cocked. A 5 goes down to a 3, That is a retreat result. That French column is broken. Okay, so the French battalion here has, to some extent, been quite lucky. It took 5 casualties, plus 1 for the combat dice, took 6 casualties, that took it up to 10. Took a retreat result and rolled a 2, so that's 1 extra casualty from the retreat. So it is now on 11 casualties down here. And I remembered, as we were a large battery firing at close range, we would get an extra combat dice, but I again rolled a 2 on that, so that didn't convert. So that battalion stays on 11 casualties, which saves the French brigade from a falter test. We've got the discipline test to do for the double 6 we rolled. For the artillery battery, it gives us an 11, which I don't think will do too much. Ah, no, it does indeed cause the opposing side to do a falter test. So that'll be a falter test on this attacking French brigade. Okay, we'll now do some charging on the left flank. Okay, and apologies, we did this one slightly out of order, but we were just working our way up the table. So this will be a standard volley at close range against this attacking Italian battalion. We're firing at column, and we are fresh, so we do get a combat dice to our volley. Unfortunately, we've already rolled a 3 and a 2. That'll be no effect. Right, on we go, and we'll move on to the charge results as the Italians try and charge home. Okay, so on this far flank, this will be a straight roll-off. Well, the French, or the Italians do well this time. They roll a double 6, so they will get a destiny test, and they've won the combat by 4. So win by 4, they take the ground, and the Jaegers take 1d3 casualties, which is 2 more casualties, and have to retreat. We'll move those units. Okay, so the Italians have come over that defensive position and forced the Russians back to here. They fell back 6 and then did a further 6-inch move backwards rather than 18 because they were able to fall back behind their colleagues here. Now, the charge here, this was looking extremely good for the Hussars, but given the massive number of casualties they took from that skirmish screen, I will remember to do my destiny test as well in a second, but we'll come back and do, well, let's roll the destiny test first for the Italians. They did get a double 6 on the charge. Wow, another 11. That's another falter test. Falter test this time on this Russian brigade. I better put the falter markers down, or I forget how many falters we've got this turn. Okay, so this isn't a foregone conclusion. There will be a re-roll for the French because they are supported. I think you still get a support even if you're flanked. So +1 for the Russian Hussars. They're mainly getting that +4 bonus for attacking in the flank, but the Dragoons get the benefit of the massive 5 casualties, I think it was, caused on the Hussars. Hopefully I got that right. Anyway, so +1 to the Hussars. Wow, so the Hussars go to 7, but the Dragoons roll a 9, so that's a -2. So there is a straight melee. Okay, let's just take that, yeah, 0 to -2. We will go into a melee on those 2 forces at the end of the turn. Okay, this will be a straight roll off, 3 dice each. Dice being lost because of the amount of casualties and the Dragoons suffering from being attacked in the flank. The Dragoons cause 1 casualty, the Hussars cause 1 casualty. On 1 casualty each on cavalry versus casualty. It's a draw. They can fight on, or the defender can choose to retire. I think my Dragoons might choose to retire as they're fighting at a disadvantage to what they would normally be. Alright, the Dragoons will retire and the Hussars get the option of taking the ground. Alright, again, straight combat here. 4 dice for the French, 5 for the Russians, as they are holding the village already and have only taken 3, not 4 casualties. So let's see how we do. French have the disadvantage. They do have the weight of battalions if they go into the next round. Russians don't do too great. They only cause 2 casualties. French cause 1. They get the option of fighting a second round. Alright, so how are we doing at the end of turn 4? So the right flank attack by the Italians has progressed well. We've pushed that Jaeger battalion back from that wooded line. Otherwise, the Russian position on this flank is looking reasonably secure. The artillery is in good shape. None of these battalions have really taken any casualties. The French attack is more of a pinning attack. The Swiss are moving up threateningly. The Dragoons are forcing everything into square. There will be a risk here in terms of who gets initiative, but the French do have the opportunity of a countercharge if they themselves get charged in the flank by the Hussars. So Dragoons look like they're in a better position than they were last turn. Over here, the French are still steadily holding the centre. The Russians have thrown off the first attack against the redoubt, but they have lost the village on the right-hand flank, and if the French can push and turn that right flank, they potentially will win the game. All right, on we go with turn 5. Okay, so both sides wanting initiative. We've allocated pretty much all our ADCs to either our falter tests or our for rerolls. The Russians have got all units active, apart from the very battered grenadiers who have gone hesitant this turn. Let's do the falter test for their left-hand brigade. This was caused by losing this combat and the French, or the Italians rolling a 6-6. That's a Sauve qui peut. That's not good. We will roll again. We roll a 3. That's pretty darn news for this brigade. I think that will be a fallback. Okay, so the left flank's looking pretty dicey now for the Russians. The Jaeger battalion that was on that rough ground has pulled back to the hill. One of the squares that was behind the hedge line here has pulled back to the edge of the table. But the other 2 battalions and the artillery battery, which were in echelon here, were all within 12 inches of the table edge. A lesson there for not staying too close to the table edge. So they have retired off the table. All right. Now let's do the false test for the French, see if they can get a better result, but intrinsically being further advanced on the table, they're less likely to lose everything. They roll a 2. They will have a go at re-rolling that. They roll a 3. That will also be a retire result. They potentially lose the village. This battle really is swinging. Or rather, I will say that again. If you're a garrison of a strong point, you don't fall back. So the battalion in the village can stay, but the rest will retire and will stay on a falter. Okay, so we've done charges. Charlie won initiative, and he has charged in with the dragoons. They've charged back in against the hussars, who've taken their position. No, because they're not really on their flank. They're really in front of them. So you won't get a reroll, but I don't think you'll need it. And over here, the Russian Jaegers charged and did drive off the French skirmish screen, but that was all. And Charlie charged the battalion that was supporting the village in the previous turn. So we'll see how that goes. We'll start over here as Charlie charges the hussars. Okay, so this will be +5 for the French dragoons. I've got to do well. 8's not too bad. 7 plus we got the exact 5 is 12. So you win by 4. So you melee with a land, and I will melee unformed. Yeah, on 3 to 5, attacker melees with a land. If it's infantry, you take the ground, but if it's cavalry, it's a melee. You melee with a land, I am unformed. And I'm still on the flank, Charlie, so don't turn me around. All right, so we're doing the charge here. Charlie's got 2 casualties, I've got 6. My defensive volley caused nothing, so this will, and we're both the same morale grade, so this will simply be +1 to Charlie and the French. We roll a 6, he rolls a 9, goes to a 10, he's won by 4. I retreat and take 1d3 casualties, he takes the ground. Yeah, so I take 3 casualties and you take the ground. Okay, so the Italians continue their flanking movement, as does this infantry brigade on the Charlie's far right. The dragoons are now positioning themselves to potentially sweep through and take the flank of the Russian position behind the village. Charlie is still holding the village, but is under the pressure from the Russians, but they need to get infantry assault off, really, otherwise they'll just do some fire. And over here, Charlie has moved up onto the ridge now and is threatening the gun position. All right, Charlie, you're firing first. What are you going to go with?
I'm going against that battalion.
Okay, so that'll be at long range. A 7 is half a casualty, doesn't convert.
This one?
Yeah, what you're going to fire? That one down there. Okay. 6, half casualty, doesn't convert. Your skirmish screens can't fire anything in either place, so I think that's your firing.
You're firing. You
Okay.
can fire your gun and that's it, I think.
Yeah, I've got my artillery battery which will fire against that one at effective range. It's in column as well. I do 1 casualty for being in column.
And I think that's really it.
I think so. I can do an inferior volley from these guys who are unformed.
They get ran
Yeah, I think they're unformed though, so it's an inferior volley at -2. No, there's loss of fire discipline, so that won't do anything. I will fire 3 dice for them. They get 1 dice into the village from the skirmishers, which doesn't do anything. And I think that's it. This skirmisher screen up here will fire.
I don't think he'll be...
Oh, you can fire at them. He's probably got 3 shots. Yeah, and the discipline test.
I don't think all of them are going to be in range.
We'll just check that. All right, so this is going to be a tough one for Charlie. He's got 5 dice. And the Russians have got 1 dice. They do cause a casualty. Oh my gosh, it's a draw. 1 casualty each. I'm on 11. I don't break. Am I going to fall back or fight on?
You might as well fight on because they're not going to survive another turn.
I think I've got to fall back.
No, because they're in their own division. They're in their own division, so it won't matter.
It's true. It's true. All right, we'll fight on. We'll finish them off. My second round. I'm going to cause another casualty.
They're on 8 now.
Okay, and you cause 2 on me. They falter. They're gone. The dragoons collapse. Okay, rolling for this Russian brigade. If they know what's good for them, given the army that's approaching, they will just run. But let's see what they do. We've got a reroll. Reroll of 4.
They will probably run off the table.
I think that's probably still a retire. We will. I'm sure it's a retire.
Before they carry on faltering because they're not veterans. They carry
I
on
know.
faltering.
Yeah, but do they retire or do they stop?
They retire if they're over 9 inches.
Well, we'll check that, but we'll do the reroll.
6.
A 6. They obey orders. They will stay. Right, now a very important roll for the French. Let's see what they do. A 5. They obey orders as well. Big sigh of relief for Charlie there. That would have knocked a hole in his plans. I think it would have been a tough one for him if he lost that central brigade. Okay, so they're obeying orders. I've now got to activate my other brigades because I haven't rolled for them, but I have no ADCs. So my main brigade, and I can't do infantry assault, you're right, and my grenadiers are both active. So those 2 brigades are active, but these ones are also obeying orders. Yeah, so all the Russian brigades are active, and I think all the French brigades are active, aren't they?
Wait, Dad, I was wondering.
Yeah.
All that, can't you leave off the table and then come back on somewhere else up here on the line?
You don't really do it in the rules. If this was a very big, very long campaign, we might do that with the appropriate allocation of ADCs. You can insert a brigade into a different part of the line, but it is quite expensive, and we'd have to voluntarily withdraw and come back a few turns later. So yeah, it's not a bad idea for a big game. Let's roll for initiative. I get an 8. Hey, the Russians finally get initiative. Not that they've got much to do. All right, desperately hang on in there, I think, is the orders. All right, Charlie is charging with these dragoons against this line of Russian Jaegers. 7, they do finish to form square. They'll probably be all right. There's no penalty on them. You will hit the skirmishers, though, who will probably flee off table. Okay, we did check that, and being a line, when you're charged by cavalry, your form square test is at -1. We had rolled a 7, so that goes down to a 6, so that's a fail. So we go unformed, and the dragoons will be able to do a charge. We don't get to fire because we try to charge, so this will be a straight charge test, Charlie, as you try and charge home. So you are dragoons, you're line, you're not heavy cavalry. I am unformed, that's -2. I am in line, that's -2. I haven't taken any casualties, nor have you really, so I think it's simply -4. My brigade is demoralised, so actually it's -5. -5 for the Russians. We roll a 9, so that goes down to a 4. You've got an 8, so you've won by 4. Cavalry versus infantry. You melee with a lan. I melee unformed. You charge home. Second charge on the far right flank. This light infantry battalion has charged the Russians on the hill.
It would be half effect for your shot and -2 because you're unformed.
I'm unformed definitely.
And half effect because you had inferior.
Is it inferior volley?
No,
I know I was run through, wasn't it, this turn?
You had fire discipline from last turn, but you didn't mark it. You said you had.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's fine.
Okay, so it's an inferior volley at -2. That will be a 6 on an inferior volley. Is just 1 casualty on you.
So that won't do
Let's
anything
do the charge results. I've got 2 casualties.
Got 3.
You've got 3, so this will be a straight roll off, but
But
-2 because I'm unformed. I roll a 4. You roll a double 1, so that's a -2. So I think you'll probably just stop and volley, but we will check. All right, rolling for this melee. I'm unformed, so I lose a dice, and I cause only 1 casualty.
I cause
3, that destroys me. You beat me by 2, which means I am dispersed, and you get to yeah, consolidate and take the ground. Okay, so we're at the beginning of turn 7. So the left flank really is a catastrophe for the Russian forces. We have simply one square left. We've got the Swiss moving up to threaten the square, and we've got a unit of dragoons that can pin. The Italians have brushed all their opposition away from in front of them. We've got the other 2 dragoon units in command and able to threaten the flank, potentially with flank charges this turn into the Russians. And over on this flank, although we're still holding the redoubt, the French are poised to attack there. And Charlie has used these ADCs to put infantry assault on this brigade. It's a house rule. I'm not sure if we're 100% right on this, but I play once you've got anything other than a bay orders, if you've got a fallback or a retire result or a retreat or result in your falter tests, it effectively cancelled out any pre-existing orders, so we have to reapply them. So Charlie has reapplied infantry assault, so again, both French brigades have infantry assault. All right, let's roll for our falter test on this brigade. We lost our Russian Jaegers this turn. They fall off the table, and a 2. This whole brigade's gone. Charlie has broken his 2nd Russian brigade. All right, so the dragoons that were down here have charged across the bridge. They will have taken a casualty for doing it and gone into the flank of my Grenadiers brigade. The other French dragoon regiment is in support. Down here, the French, no charges from the village, but his Charlie's supports are moving up, and he's charged again into the unformed French. The French have charged into the unformed Russian lines on this flank. We'll start down here. Let's see if we can form square. It'll be on -1 because of our casualties. We roll a 10. So we do manage to form square. Okay, rolling the combat down here. So the defensive fire from the Russians caused nothing. I am on -1, so I roll a 4. I'm on -2, aren't I? Because I'm unformed.
But when the reroll gave -3 because it got 9 casualties.
No, it doesn't work like that. But I can re-roll one of these dice. I will re-roll the 1, a 2. My support is unformed, so that takes the 2 down to a 1. So that means I'm on a 5, and then I take my unformed modifier off, so I'm on a 3. So Charlie's won by 9. He smashes through and destroys that brigade. They rout off table. So the French have piled on. This looks like just even more pain for the Russians. They've gone into the battalion in the rear. So that is going to be a test at -4, isn't it, Charlie? Because I am unformed and I've got 9 casualties. No supports this time, so I go down to a 3.
I'm going to reroll my 2 to get a 5 and an 11.
11, yeah, he's smashed me again and driven that battalion off the table. With great glee, Charlie is going through the last rites here. Okay, so he's deployed his artillery battery. He moved up. They're going to fire at this square. You get a bonus for firing at squares, don't you, Charlie?
2 combat dice, effective range, -2 though for this.
So, in square plus 2 combat dice, you're right, and it's at effective range. Okay.
I get 1 fatigue casualty.
1
and 1 casualty.
and 1 casualty on me. Takes me up to 6. You've got your skirmisher screen that can fire at me. You've got 4 shots with your skirmisher screen.
I got 1 casualty.
Another casualty. Your garrison can fire at one of my units.
It's going to fire at the weaker one.
Okay.
Because it's closer.
1 more casualty. That takes them up to 9.
These guys.
That skirmish screen can fire at me.
4 dice.
Yep.
I do 1 casualty.
That takes them up to 10. And then the garrison.
3 dice.
1 more casualty. We're up to 11. Just hanging on by our fingernails. All right. The guns can fire, yeah. Where are you going to fire them?
Just with an arc of
No, they wouldn't choose them.
Against
Against that battalion down there, perhaps. I think that's what they'd fire at. 5, no.
Half.
No, nothing at all. I think that's it for your firing. Have you fired the garrison there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then the Russians will fire 1 shot against the garrison. That's 1 more casualty on the garrison. The guns will open fire on that column there. We roll a 6. That'll be 1 casualty at effective range, I think.
And they got -1.
No, they've only taken 2 casualties. And then we'll fire a formed volley here, but this will be at -2. And against skirmishers is -4, so that'll be a 2. So that'll be nothing. that's it. At that point, I think the Russians are going to concede.
Should we do a
They've pretty much got nothing left. Have we got a falter test to do?
Yeah, then, 'cause
All right, we'll do ADCs for the start of turn 8 and see if the army actually just falters, as we've lost no less than 2 battalions down here. Okay, so we'll roll our falter tests. We do have a reroll. We get a 1. That means we withdraw. We get a 2. All right, we're simply left with 2 grenadier battalions on the table. Otherwise, the rest of the Russians have decided they've had enough. I can absolutely understand it. This is a crushing French victory. Great performance, Charlie. Well done. These dragoons came back from potentially catastrophe when they were charged in the flank by the hussars. They were saved by their skirmisher colleagues who caused so many casualties when the hussars charged in with passing fire. Hopefully we got that right. Anyway, we got these 2 dragoon regiments poised on the flank of this Russian force that was still some threat to this village. But Charlie has moved his artillery up now to put pressure on the squares. He's got all his battalions back in to support the village. We got a lot of casualties on this unit. 9, 3, 9 and 6, so not much fight left in them. And I think that other battalion over there has 11, so that'll be gone next turn, then another break test. So although we haven't lost the redoubt, I think that's just going to happen next turn as those 2 French columns wheel and charge them in the flank. So congratulations, Charlie. Great game. Hope you've enjoyed this one, the Battle of Bautzen, Macdonalds attack. Do let us have your comments. Do remember to subscribe to the channel and look forward to seeing you for more Napoleonic fun in the future next time. Cheers, everyone. Have a great weekend.